So here are some random pictures from Jeddah. Jeddah is a second largest city in Saudi Arabia, has about 4 million people living there, and it's, I think, about 1,300 years old. It is a commercial center of Saudi Arabia, and it's a port city on the shore of the Red Sea. Here it's a commercial hub. You can see traditional shops and stores here. You can see many of them. There are not many tourists at all. Mostly you can see are the local folks selling by. Here is kind of a funny picture, two guys selling makeups and stuff for ladies. Also, historical Jeddah is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the architecture is quite distinct. The houses, the old houses, historical houses, kind of have this interesting shape. I can show you probably some more. Some of them are very nicely restored already. Some of them are being worked on, and it's really something quite unique that I've never seen anywhere else, not even in Saudi Arabia. Here we are in the middle of Old Jeddah Historical Center, and some street shots, buying carpets, clothes and such. Again, an example of a historical architecture that's not quite repaired yet, but you can see restoration in many places in the old city. You can stroll through the old narrow lanes and streets. Kind of interesting to see all those things, and it's a living part of the city. People live there, work there, shop there, whatever. Yeah, I don't know what this man is actually doing, but it certainly looked interesting. Here you see again one of the examples of the traditional old architecture. People strolling about, going about the life. And here is kind of a center of the old Jeddah. Signs, road signs are quite frequently bilingual, Arabic and English, but sometimes not, but it's easy to figure it out. Yeah, this is some old houses. I wouldn't say ruins yet, but it looks like it's being restored. And this is a mosque in the old Jeddah at the sunset. And here we are already. It's quite dark. And this is one interesting thing that I've noticed, which is probably nothing special to people who live there. Well, it is special in a sense, but it shows you, this is a shot of the ceiling in my hotel room, and this shows you the sign, the direction where Mecca is. So it's for people who want to pray in their room to know which way they should turn, because you pray with your face, with your body towards Mecca. So we were driving on the highway, and saw this herd of camels behind. And suddenly this car comes from the opposite direction and makes a U-turn and stops right next to us. And it turned out that the guy was just curious who we were, and he offered us tea, dates, and some pastry. And we started chatting. He told us that he never saw a tourist in Saudi Arabia in his life, so he was curious where we are going, where we came from, what our plans are, and so on. So that was kind of an interesting conversation. But what blew my mind was that after a while he asked us if we have money. And usually when someone says in some foreign country, a local person says, "Do you have money?" It just means that he will be trying to separate me from my hard-earned cash. But what really surprised me was that the guy took a bunch of banknotes from his pocket and said, "Oh, if you don't have any money, I'll give you some money." And obviously he was not poor, but he didn't look exactly rich. So that was a pretty interesting experience. So after a while we continued and enjoyed the views. You can see that there are actually pretty interesting rock formations, mostly sandstone, carved out over millions of years by wind and water, I guess. But it was otherworldly. Really, in some areas, it was very beautiful landscape. We also saw how people live in the desert. You can see by the road kind of a very similar architecture. The houses are of the same shape mostly, and usually they have some courtyard or some wall around. So also we saw a Saudi school bus, kind of interesting looking bus. And when you drive, guys, you have to pay attention to camel crossing. You don't want to have a collision with a camel. At least I wouldn't. And as we continued further and further north through the desert, we didn't see that many cars. Driving was pretty easy. There was a lot of to look at, and sometimes we just stopped to admire the landscape and to take pictures. Here we got to one of the UNESCO sites, but unfortunately it was closed. There was no access, and based on the information that we got, they were just trying to prep it for the influx of tourists that they anticipated coming. And here is something that we should pay attention to when you travel in Saudi Arabia, even on the highways. Don't forget to take some water and food, obviously, because if you don't and you get in trouble, you really get in trouble. Look at this poor camel. He had right in the middle a bottle of water, probably his last bottle of water, but it wasn't enough for him. Didn't make it. Poor guy. And we saw a really amazing stones. I don't know what this reminds me of, a giant mushroom, but it is really big. Look at the discarded tires around it. And here is a close-up. And here is another. And another. And the site was, this UNESCO site was fenced off. There was no way to get inside, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure that inside there would be much more things to see. And we have in the northern hemisphere, especially in the really north, we have in winter roads covered by snow, but here, as you can see, roads can be covered by snow, and there are snowstorms. Actually, we got into one sandstorm, I should say, and the visibility was maybe 7 feet, 2 meters, something like that. Really bad. So this leads me to another little story. We saw this date palm trees by the road, and we never seen dates on the trees up close. So we stopped and we tried to go and have a look, and we met the owner who invited us inside, showed us his orchard, and after a while we some pictures, we looked around, and he invited us to have some dates and some cookies and water. So that was really neat. He told us about his farm, about his orchard. The owner is the guy on the right in glasses. Behind him is his one and only employee, and they produce, he said, 20,000 kilograms of dates per year, and he sells them to Austria. I think he mentioned he gets like 6-7 euros per kilogram. I don't remember exactly now, but it was really interesting. Okay guys, I hope you liked what you saw, and if you did, just go to the bottom of your screen and click on that little icon, that huge bucket, and sign up for my channel, hopefully before I kick the bucket.